Hello everyone, it's Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, coming to you live here on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Today is another Express Entry live Q&A, and I'm looking forward to having a bunch of people join me live, as always, and as they start to connect, it usually takes a little bit for this live video to show on their timeline. So we'll wait patiently. Those of you who are already jumping in, and I'm starting to see tons of people popping in, make sure that you post below in the comment section where you're listening from, because I love to see where everybody is tuning in from. Nydia, hi, says hi, Mark. DC says hi, Mark. Ralph, hey, Ralph. I'm coming to see you guys on Saturday, I think it is. Yes, I will be traveling up to Edmonton to see little Jaden, and I'm so excited about that. Ralph and his family are some awesome past clients that are just like family to me now, and so I'm looking forward to making the trip up to Edmonton. So that will be this weekend. Awesome. All right, who else do we have here? Nydia is from Mexico City. Fantastic. DC's India. Rux is also India. And let's see who else we have here. Wajahat says, hi, Mark. So those of you who are just tuning in right now, make sure you post in the comment section where you're tuning in from. I love to see the mix, because when I started this, I never really understood how broad the reach could really be. That people, even though it's noon Mountain Standard Time right now, which is when I do it, it's like midnight in other areas of the world, 12:30 in some places. And to have people willing to stay up this late to watch this just blows my mind. It's crazy to think about that. And obviously, those of the people that are in Canada that are at work, it's kind of hard to take off lunch to watch this. So it's an interesting kind of a situation, but this is the time that worked best for me to do this live Q&A, because I have a day job, and that is representing all of the clients that I have regarding a variety of immigration applications. So it's not just Express Entry, but this one, guys, is all devoted to Express Entry. All right, so you bet, Ralph, you're up in Edmonton. Sean's in the UK. Cool. Holman is in London, Ontario, but he's Colombian. Very cool. Wajahat's Pakistan. Awesome. Good. We've got a really, really good mix, and we'll see as other people tune in here. Those of you who are tuning in for the first time will know that this is all designed to give you an opportunity to ask me questions about Express Entry live and get your answers, get your answers instantly. Before we get to that, I always go through the questions that are sent in by listeners via email. And so we're going to cover those first. And then once we get through those, then we'll answer the live questions. Waj is from Morocco. Very cool. And you'll see here at the bottom, if you want your questions answered, you can send me an email, especially those of you who are watching this as a recording. And I want to give a special shout out to everybody that's watching this as a recording on my YouTube channel, the Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel. You too can send a question in to Stephanie at stringham.ca. Stephanie is my legal assistant, and she will compile all of those, and she will send them to me to go through and choose the best ones that will give the most information and be as beneficial to the most number of people that are tuning in. So if you have a specific question, understand I can't answer specific questions. Do I qualify? Which PNP is right for me? Do I have the correct knock for my job description? All of those things, guys, are all things that would need to go through a paid consultation, because I never want to give specific information and really legal advice over Facebook. It just, I would be afraid that I would miss something, that I wouldn't have all the information. But the general questions that you send in that relate to all of the people, the over 120,000 members of the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, those who are tuning in on YouTube that are, I think we're about 15,000 or something YouTube subscribers. All of those people are tuning in to get the most benefit they can for the time that they spend. And so because of that, I can't answer the specific questions. Also, I had a bunch of people that sent many questions in one email. Well, I can only choose one because it wouldn't be fair to everybody else. So I've just chosen the first one on the list. So if you have a bunch of questions and I only get to one of them, that's why. You can always send another question to be considered next week or book a consultation. And in 25 minutes, we can go through everything. All right. Looks like we've got a lot of people tuning in. This is great. Hasib is from Bangladesh. Very cool. Aisha says, how do I book a consultation with yourself? Okay, I'll just quickly, I've got a bunch of things going on here on my screen. I've got to clear a few things out. Looks like we're just about at the stage now where we've got a really good group of people that are tuning in. I'm just going to pull up my screen here, and I am going to share this screen with you guys. If you want to book a consult, which I would love to work with you, all you have to do is to go to my the consult form right here on my my page. And it looks to me, I'm just going to reload this. Oh, I think I got the wrong one. Let's do this one here. That's why. Oh, well, I guess we'll have to figure this out. I'm just looking here, and there should be schedule a consult. Let's make sure I have the right page here. Sometimes our website gets adjusted and moved around and things like that. And so I'm just trying to find, it looks like it's here now, maybe. I'll have to check that out. Interesting. Okay, well, I guess we'll sort that out. All right. Okay. Anyways, but this is the place that you go. I'm going to post it into the comment section below. And then you guys can, anyone who wishes to book a paid consult, we can set that up. All right. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to shrink this down here and go back to the main screen. Okay. All right. Tatenda says, hello, Mark. Hope you're feeling better. I am. I'm feeling a whole lot better. I've had an opportunity to do quite a bit over the weekend, which was awesome. And maybe I'll just share just a couple quick little pictures. So actually, I think it was yesterday, I went for a little walk. So we have this river called the Old Man River that flows right beside our city. Well, it flows right through the city. And you can see there, I took a picture because I packed my fishing rod. It was actually a fair walk to get to this spot. Pretty, it's not easy for people to get to. And anyways, and you can see down there, there's this nice channel of water. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a great place to fish. And I love fishing. So I brought my fly rod, I bought my spin cast reel. I went down there and I fished and I fished and I fished and got nothing, zero. So it was not the most productive afternoon, but it was awesome just to get away. And because I'm feeling a whole lot better, I'm in a much better position now to be of service to all of you guys, just because I feel a whole lot better. Over the weekend, I also was able to go with my son here, Connor. Looks like that's not the greatest picture. Let's see, I got a better one here. Okay, there we are. There, I'm smiling. We stuck my phone up on a fence post, and you can see back in those trees behind us, in the picture to my left, as you're looking at me in the picture, there was, you can see our cabin, our family's cabin, which is just tiny. You can hardly see it. The screen is so small. And so Connor and I had to bushwhack through a bunch of trees to get to this spot here. And on the way there, Connor was a little nervous about bears. And in fairness, there are grizzly bears and everything that are roaming through there. But we were crossing this fence and we came upon this picture. And it's kind of hard to see a little bit here. But basically, at the bottom part, you can see there's tracks where the grass is broken. And then this big pile of this. Let's see. There you go. And you guys can probably guess what that is. And it is chock full of berries. So good thing this bear scat was full of berries, because it would have been not so fun. It was full of animal hair, or it was hungry looking for, say, me or Connor. Needless to say, we decided that we weren't going to continue following this path that we were following, and that we should probably go a different direction, because it was actually relatively fresh when that bear had walked through there. So anyway, so that's what we've been up to. And yeah, we had a lot of fun over the weekend, just getting away, recharging, and making use of this awesome weather that we're having here this summer, because it will come to an end. And our summers are far, far too short. All right, so that is what's been going on in Mark Holthy's life over the last weekend. All right, so, Ralph says, is there trout fish? You have to use woolly bugger. I tried, my friend. I'm not sure. Every once in a while I hear stories that there's some trout in the Old Man, but usually there's pike, there's a bunch of different fish, but unfortunately no luck. There was no luck going fishing yesterday, but that's okay. I will survive. All right, so next on our list is to jump in and start answering the questions that were sent in by email. And like I said, if you're late tuning in, all you need to do is send an email to stephanie@stringham.ca, and you must put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. If you don't put EE Live Q&A in the subject line, then what's going to happen is you are not going to be able to get your question directed to the EE Live Q&A. Instead, Stephanie will send you a consultation request to set up a paid consultation with me. So if you want your question to be answered, then make sure you put EE Live Q&A in the subject line, but also make sure that it's general in nature. All right, let's jump in here. So this question is from Rahul, and there's quite a bit. It says, hi, Mark, how are you? Wanted to first thank you for the amazing work that you do. You're very welcome, Rahul. Okay, so Rahul is working as a primary teacher, has been doing that for 1.5 years, from January 2014 to July 2015. And then after that, he enrolled in a 2-year Bachelor of Education, which was completed in 2017. So he says he's got a BCom, an MCom, and that he completed 2012, 2014. He's been working again since January 2018. So he's got 3 years of total work experience. And here's the question, okay? And I see this happen a lot. So the question says, can you please suggest if my work experience prior to obtaining my Bachelor of Education would count for express entry or PNP, or only post completing a Bachelor of Education would count? And this is the part that makes me want to tear my hair out. He says, my consultant says that a Bachelor of Education is mandatory for teachers, and only my work experience post it will count. In other words, after the education. Well, I can tell you unequivocally, Rahul, that your consultant is either overgeneralizing or doesn't freaking understand express entry, because that is not the case. When it comes to express entry, the PNPs may have their own rules, right? They may have their own guidelines, they may have their own expectations. But when it comes to applying through the Federal Skilled Worker Program and applying through express entry, your education is irrelevant. Now, I'm not going to say it's completely irrelevant. If you say you're an astrophysicist or a rocket scientist and you only have high school education, then maybe an officer is going to question whether or not that work history you're claiming is actually genuine and whether or not you actually worked in that occupation. But please note that when it comes to determining what work experience is, the only thing they're looking at is whether or not you completed all of the activities in the lead statement of your NOC or a substantial number of the main duties that are listed in the position profile for your NOC. So if it's 4032, and let's jump in and let's take a look at it here. So if it's 43, so I'm going to go to NOC, see if I can start over here, NOC 2016. This is the source. This is where you guys go. And then I'm going to type in here, we've got 4032, and that will pull up elementary school and kindergarten teachers. So for you, Rahul, the key here is, did you perform all of these activities in the lead statement? So basically, did you teach at a school? Writing, arithmetic, specialized subjects, public and private elementary schools. That's the key. Then the next is these main duties here. Did you perform a substantial number of these main duties? Prepare courses, teach students, lead students in activities, assign homework, prepare and correct tests, evaluate the student's progress, identify their learning needs, remedial programs for students that are struggling. Did you participate in staff meetings? And you may supervise teacher aides. Okay, did you do these activities? Did you perform a substantial number of the main duties? And so I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 total here. And I guess you could add in 10, although this is May, so it's not an essential duty. So if we said 10, a substantial number is right around 75%. That's kind of a baseline. Now, it doesn't always apply. So did you perform at least 7 or 8 of these duties? If you did, that's great. The employment requirements, yes, state this. If you wanted to work in Canada and get a work permit, yes, these are mandatory. But when it comes to express entry, that is not what they're looking at. They're looking at the duties and the actions that you've actually performed. All right? Great question. I get that one a lot. So your consultant, like I said, is either just overgeneralizing or don't understand express entry, and why in the world you ever hired them in the first place? Well, I don't know. Okay. And I always find that interesting when people, they reach out and they book consults to confirm information that their consultant can't answer for them. Why would you give them money? Why in the world do you guys hire these agents overseas who have no freaking clue what they're doing? I have no clue. Zero. All right. Especially when you can purchase my step-by-step do-it-yourself guide for a fraction of the price that you would pay, or you can just book and do a silver plan, which is my favorite one to do, with me, where I review your whole application yourself. You have control over it. You submit your own profile. You submit your own EAPR. But I go through a Skype screen share, just like you and I are talking right now. Like you see, this is what you get. And I will do exactly this. I will flip over. We will log into your MyCIC account. We will go through everything, including your reference letters, to make sure they work, that your police certificates are accurate, that all your documents are in place. All right. Or you could hire an agent like Raul, and then hopefully wait for me to answer a question through a live Q&A. All right. And I don't mean to disparage you in any way, Raul. There's probably valid reasons why you wanted to try to get a consultant to help you. Hopefully that answered your question. And if you still have time, I'm more than happy to take over and help you from here. Because if your consultant doesn't understand that, you are on shaky ground. All right. And I wouldn't trust your life with them. Okay, moving forward. All right. So next one here, this one is from Sinem. And it says, I'd like to thank you for the amazing videos and the do-it-yourself course for Canada immigration. Awesome. Looks like Sinem subscribed to it. I have a few questions that I appreciate to be answered in the live Q&A. So Sinem, this is where I'm going to answer the first question. You've got 3 here, but I'm just going to answer the first one. So the first one says, do police certificates supposed to have a photo? In my country, they do not normally provide a police certificate with photo. The answer is no, not at all, Sinem. All you have to do is you go back to the source of all goodness and all information, which is the IRCC website. You search how to get a police certificate. When you're here, you pull up your country. Let's just take, for example, Australia, okay? So we click on here, find out how to apply, and then you follow these instructions. It does not matter. Please understand. Okay, so here, how to apply. Do you live in Australia now? So obviously they've got some other things. So we'll say, yes, I live there. Continue. Okay, so then they give you the information. So follow what is in here for your country explicitly. Many countries all over the world do not have photos that are required for their police certificates. So just follow these instructions religiously, as carefully as you can, and you'll be just fine, okay? Because obviously it's not a big deal. And then for your other questions, like I said, if you want to book a consult, you can do that, or you can just pick one and repost it. Okay, and the reason that I do that, guys, is because I want to reward all of you awesome listeners who are watching live. I want all of you guys to be able to have the opportunity to get your questions answered, and I still want the mail-in questions because it sets a good standard for what we're trying to do here. But okay, next question is all about getting paid in cash. I'm not going to read, this is from Iqbal, and I'm not going to read the whole drawn out thing. At the end of the day, the question really relates to Iqbal has been working, and actually it looks like his spouse has been working in as a software engineer, has over 3.5 years of experience, but even though the company is all registered and everything, the current company giving her salary is in cash mode. That's what Iqbal says. It means for the last 1.5 years, she is getting salary in cash. Please advise, what is the chance of our visa success through express entry, and which documents we need to submit to support a cash salary? Well, understand, guys, when you're going through this process and you are submitting information to prove your work history, it does not ask you to provide bank statements, for instance, showing that you've been paid. That's not what's being asked. And if you go through here and we go to the main source of knowledge, once again, this time I'm gonna type in completeness check. So this time I'm going to type in IRCC completeness check, and then I'm going to go to work experience. So right here, you guys will see this is what contains the instructions right here. And just for those who are watching, I'll just paste it into the link here. So when I'm looking at work experience, this is what it's asking for. It wants you to provide, these documents are mandatory, okay? So a reference letter or experience letter from the employer. It's got all the contact information here. And then that reference letter needs to reference job title, duties and responsibilities, job status, if it's your current job, dates worked for the company, the number of hours per week, and this is the spot, okay? Your annual salary plus benefits. So that is traditionally, that's what they're looking for. And if your company is online, it's got a website, it's easy to verify that the company exists, you know, that you're working as a software developer. The letter that you provide from the company with the contact information for your immediate supervisor, all of that is all listed completely in the reference letter, then you are already in fantastic shape. Now, whether they paid you via direct deposit, whether they paid you just straight cash, well, yeah, it's easier to verify that you were actually paid this if you had a direct deposit or something like that. But do you have pay stubs? Even if you're paid in cash, do you have pay stubs? Did you remit taxes for the payment, the income that you've received? Those are all things that I look for when I'm trying to prove just this one component. If you apply in Canada, you can see here, if it's gained in Canada, then you provide T4 tax information slips. So that is a statement showing how much tax you paid or your employer remitted on your behalf and sent to the Canada Revenue Agency. And so those we will always include if you're in Canada, because they're conclusive proof that you've been working and you were paid a salary. So do you have something that's the equivalent in your country? That's how I focus on answering the whole issue of cash. But just because you're cash doesn't mean that you can't claim that work experience. Many people are paid in cash, but you do need to have evidence to provide showing that actually did happen. And one of them is an awesome reference letter, and other is tax filings. Sometimes people will deposit the cash right into their account. Well, that's fine too, but there's no real confirmation of the source of it. So that's traditionally how I deal with that. All right. Good question. Okay. Next one on the list. Okay. This is actually a really good one. So this one's from Holman. And he says, thanks for doing these sessions. They are really helpful. You are awesome. Thank you, Holman. I appreciate that. I'd like to know a little bit more about how provincial nominees are assessed under express entry. So this is the crux. So listen and pay attention, guys. This is a PNP application that is through one of the express entry streams. This is what we're focusing on here. So don't get confused. Don't misinterpret what I'm going to say here. This relates specifically to provincial nominee programs, whether it's a Saskatchewan immigrant nominee program, Alberta immigrant nominee program, Ontario, or the BC PNP, Nova Scotia, whatever it is. But these are provincial nominee programs that have an express entry stream, okay? So in order to get in, you need to have a profile. You have to be eligible for either the Federal Skilled Worker Program or the Canadian Experience Class or the Federal Skilled Trade Program to get into the pool. The nomination comes, you still have to go back through express entry. So that's critical to understand. Now let's move forward. The question is, do you have to show proof of funds if you get a nomination under a provincial nominee program? So once again, this answer is restricted to express entry streams. In fact, Holman here indicated specifically the Alberta express entry. Well, he says also what information should be included in the letter of explanation regarding relocation within Canada. I'm not going to get into that. The key here is that he lives in Ontario currently and that he is working in a not classified as skill level B. So they don't want to lose their job without a definitive answer. So they're not in the process of, or ready to actually move to Alberta. The key here for Holman is, the first question I have is, do you have a job offer? Well, if you have a job offer, then you do not typically need to provide proof of funds. And remember, this is through express entry. So if you have a job offer, you don't need to provide it. The next thing is if you are drawn under the Canadian Experience class. So remember, even though you get a nomination from Alberta's express entry process, you will see that you are eligible maybe for one or both, the Canada Experience class or the Federal Skilled Worker Program, because you're actually working right now in Canada. So, but you're in Alberta, you're in Ontario. So it's unlikely that your current employer has given you a job offer to support your LMIA application. In all honesty, you're probably on a postgrad work permit, right? That's open, and your employer can't get a labor market impact assessment. So because you're not on an employer specific, the prospects of then getting a nomination from Alberta are actually super attractive, because yes, when you go through, you get that 600 points and it guarantees you getting an invitation to apply. But in your case, no job offer, then it comes down to the Canadian Experience class. And this is what I don't know from your question. If in your pool, your profile in your pool is under the Canadian Experience class, then you don't need to provide proof of funds when it comes to submitting your application through the Canadian Experience class, even with the support of the provincial nomination. Because remember, you still have to be eligible for those two programs. Now, I'll provide a caveat. When it comes to getting your nomination, many provinces do require proof of funds before you even get to that stage. So you have to follow the specific instructions for that province. You have to follow, obviously, the instructions for express entry. And in your situation here, it's more than likely that you're probably in the profile, you've met the eligibility for the Canadian Experience class, but I can't tell for sure. So for most people, I usually say, go out of your way to make sure that you always have the proof of funds. But if you do not have them, then the two ways that you avoid it is with a job offer, and that's an official job offer, not just someone sending you a letter. So you've either worked in Canada for at least a year for a company that's exempt for a labor market impact assessment in a skilled occupation, or you have been drawn under the Canadian Experience class. Okay? All right, great question, Holman. Woo, that was a big one. But I will tell you that many provinces who have other streams outside of express entry and otherwise still do specifically request that you provide it. But if it's not on the document checklist, if it's not requested in order to get your nomination from that province, and you have a job offer or you're under the Canadian Experience class, then you don't need to provide proof of funds. Okay, next question is from Ravi, and Ravi provided 7 questions. I'm only going to answer the first one, Ravi. He says here, and this is a pretty general question, he says, are my points go high if I get married? In other words, do my points go up if I get married? Well, that's a loaded question. The answer is, what is the human capital for your spouse? So if I jump back here, this time we're going to go to CRS criteria, EE. I'm going to open it up. And in here, you will see that for people who are married, so without a spouse, 110, 150. With a spouse, 100, 140, 150, 70. So you can see there's 40 total points when you're married that are attributed to your spouse. So your question, will my points go up, depends entirely on the human capital factors right here of your spouse. So if we scroll down, what is the level of education of your spouse? 10 points are attributed to her. If she has a PhD and you have a master's, then you're probably going to get more points with the spouse. Official language, if your spouse speaks better English than you do, then it's possible that your points could actually go up a little bit with the spouse. Same thing if your spouse is working in Canada. So that's the short of the answer. It depends entirely on your spouse. All right, next question. This one is from Monica. My question is whether it is compulsory for my husband to do an educational credential assessment and get a reference letter when I'm the principal applicant and my comprehensive ranking system score is about 465 without points from my husband. Can our application be disqualified on this basis even when I don't claim points on them? So you have indicated here, Monica, that you have 465 points without points from your husband. Now, what you haven't indicated here is, have you listed him as accompanying or non-accompanying? If you list him as non-accompanying, then his points don't affect anything, and you don't have to go through that same process. If you've listed him as accompanying and without his education, and you haven't indicated IELTS, but there's no ECA, then basically, if we shift back here, then it basically means you're going to be losing 10 points for education if there's nothing, if you haven't done an ECA. And when it comes to reference letters, do you guys see anywhere here where you're getting points as a spouse for foreign work experience? The short answer is no, it doesn't exist. There's points here for Canadian work experience under what we call our human, we'll jump back up here, the human capital factors. These here are all based on Canadian work experience, okay? And for a spouse, Canadian work experience. That's the only place for a spouse where you're getting points for work experience, if it's in Canada. If you scroll down, you'll see that there are skill transferability factors. This is the only place where foreign work experience kicks in, and yet this only applies to the principal applicant. So if you have good language and you have good foreign work experience, then you can get up to 50 points here. If we scroll down and we go to the education, the language part, so education here, foreign work experience, if you have good, let me just find it, skill transferability, foreign work experience. Okay, so you can see built into here, if you have good language, CLB, and foreign work experience, you can get up to 50 points. And then the other side relates to education, which is good language and good education. So you can get an extra 50 points for having at least 3 years of skilled foreign work experience. But there is nothing here for spouses. So there's no issues at all. And when I'm completing the work history section and it says, tell us about your spouse's work history, I put none because there are no extra points given. There is no need to provide reference letters, but I will state unequivocally over and over again that you must still, in the personal history section of your spouse, list all of your work history and everything that spouse has done for the past 10 years. All right, good question, Monica. Last one, and then guys, after this one, I will get to your questions. The most important part here is to hold off because I won't go back and read through the comments. Instead, when I say, okay, let's have the live questions go now, what I want you to do, then you can post. Otherwise, I won't scroll up and your question will be missed. And please, once I say now post, you can post it, but don't post it multiple times because then it's just confusing for me. And I need something to make my life a little bit easier. All right, this one is from Franco. All right, so Franco says, yes, this is a tricky one. I have a question regarding a scholarship that I got a few years ago. It stated that I had to go back to my home country for 2 years after graduation, which I did. I am at the end of that period and I want to apply for express entry. I want to know if I have to answer yes or no to the following question. Did, in this case, Franco, study in Canada based on an award that required them to go back to their home country to apply their knowledge and skills? This includes some awards from Global Affairs Canada. Well, Franco, if you did, and you said that you did, then the answer is always yes. You can't never answer no. And then Franco identified something that's really important. When I calculate my CRS score, answering yes, I get 30 points less. And that's because, in this case, I'm assuming a degree of 3 or more years. That's where you would have normally got 30 points if it wasn't education that was based on basically your host country financing you. Do I lose the points even if I already fulfilled my obligation with my scholarship? Yeah, you're not going to get credit for it. And the reason they do that is because The support that you receive from your home country is all based on you going, getting education, and then coming back and working. And I know you fulfilled it. So that's great. But that's just one of the restrictions. So unfortunately, yeah, you're going to be out those 30 points. All right. Great question. Now it is time to answer live questions. So Ralph here says, please mark, is the internship experience, is it counted as experience for EE or PNP? Any experience, I don't care if it's intern or otherwise, that's paid, where you meet all of the expectations of foreign work experience. And if I jump back here, I'm going to share my screen again. I'm going to pull up Federal Skilled Worker Program and just eligibility. And then in here, I'm going to pull it up. Work experience, for most of you that are not in Canada, you'll remember skilled work experience is this. It's skilled. It's in NOC 0A or B. And then here's where I was drilling down. Show that your work was in, that you've performed all the activities in the lead statement right here, and all of the essential duties and most of the main duties listed. All right. So if you go here and you look at this, same job type, yep, NOC. Last 10 years, paid. Okay. And here you'll see what isn't counted. Volunteer work or unpaid internships don't count. That doesn't mean that you can't count paid internships. All right. Okay. Good question to start us off. All right. So now everybody is starting to post their questions. Remember, keep them general, not specific. If they're specific, I will have to skip them and continue on. All right. Oh, wow. All right. Let's dive into this here. Okay. So Syed says, my spouse's address in marriage certificate is not aligned with their PCC address history. She's actually in a different home at the time of marriage. Her address on marriage certificate is old. Is it okay to explain in a letter of explanation? Short answer, Syed, absolutely. Yes, that's what you do. Whenever you have anything that you feel could create a concern or some form of doubt in the mind of that officer, then yeah, take the time to explain it. Now, I want to tell you over and over, it is really, really important that you, when you're doing your letters of explanation, that you don't create more confusion. And sometimes that happens when you're trying to explain. Everything needs to be consistent. Your reference letters, your documents, your supporting documents, your police certificates, those need to be consistent with the information that you put in your EAPR. And when there's an inconsistency, a letter of explanation can help to explain why it's not the same. So in your case, address history needs to be compatible and consistent with other supporting documents that also list that address. So yes, explain. Okay. This one's from Ogu, and the question is, I got a PR in Italy in 2012 through my Italian parents, but as an adult child, and later moved to the UK for my master's. Upon completing my program before my student visa expired and filled in a PR application in the UK because my mother, who is an Italian, joined me because I was told I could apply for PR based on the EU law, but unfortunately my application was not granted. And by then, my student visa had elapsed. I later voluntarily returned back to Italy. I already got my ITA. Want to know if it will affect my application. Okay, prior visa refusals in other countries do not negatively impact on your application. But, Ogu, you absolutely, and every one of you out there, must disclose those refusals in the statutory information section of your EAPR. If you don't, and immigration discovers that there is a misrepresentation, you'll be barred from Canada for 5 years. It's as simple as that. All right, this one is Holman. He says, hi, Mark. Thank you for answering my question regarding PNP. Now my IELTS is expiring in January 2020. We are waiting for our ITA. Do I have to update my IELTS after submitting all the documents to express entry? Your IELTS will expire in 2 years. So if your IELTS expires in January 2020, if you get your ITA and you're able to submit your application before your IELTS expires, then you're okay. But if your IELTS expires between the time when you get your ITA or even before you get your ITA, obviously you're going to be found disqualified and out of the pool. You have to have a valid language assessment in order to remain in the pool. But if it expires between getting your ITA and submitting your EAPR, that's your electronic application for permanent residence, that's a big issue. So I would start thinking about now rewriting your IELTS, especially if you don't believe you're going to get your ITA right away. But as long as when you submit your EAPR, your IELTS are still valid, then you're okay. They don't expire. But I will tell you that sometimes officers take stupid positions, and because of that, if I have a client whose IELTS are expiring within 1 month of submitting the EAPR, I make sure that they get a new one because I don't want to take a chance. I don't want an officer to come back and say, well, the acknowledgement, the completeness check wasn't actually completed until after you submitted your EAPR. And by that time, when I got around to it a month after you submitted it, I'm going to return your application because your IELTS had expired at that time, even though it was valid on the day you submitted your EAPR. I just don't take chances. There's no point to it. So I will often have my clients rewrite it so it's fresh. All right, but that's me, and I just don't take chances. Gloria, okay, can someone apply to both Quebec and EE having the intention to live where accepted? Thanks from Panama. I can tell you that Quebec doesn't participate in express entry. If you indicate a desire to live and reside in Quebec, it can unravel and cause your express entry application to be rejected. And remember, your express entry application isn't just express entry. It's an application under one of the federal programs, the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Canadian Experience Class, or the Federal Skilled Trade Program. Those are the programs. Express Entry just administers those programs in an expedited way. If you have a Quebec application in the queue and you have an Express Entry application in the queue, those things can cause you problems because there will be a doubt for the Quebec whether you're actually going to live in Quebec. And there will be a doubt in your Express Entry whether or not you actually intend to live in Quebec. So I'd strongly discourage you doing both of those at the same time. There might be a way creatively to stick handle that, to explain it, but I don't take those chances. All right, Harris says, hey, Mark, I have an entire proof of funds arranged with a gift deed for my dad, but because of logistical issues, I'm showing it in a joint account with my dad. But do I have to have an official affidavit stating the money is mine to use as I want? Will this work? Any issues? Yeah, if you've got a joint account with a parent, I will always have them provide an affidavit just confirming that the funds are available for you. And there's a lot of reasons why that happens. Sometimes people travel a lot, and so their parents need to transact business for them on their account. And so it's not unusual to have it, but I always will include that affidavit or sworn statement that the funds are yours completely for the purposes of settlement, and they're not for the parent's use in the home country. All right, Mark Reyes. Hello, my friend. He says, hi, Mark. Thanks for always being awesome at all these. Do you have any acute hospital nurse care manager client who can assist with finding an appropriate NOC code? RNs are under NOC 3012. Thanks and more power to you. Yes, my friend, we had this discussion at length, didn't we? And where you have a position that just doesn't quite fit, that's where it is a challenge. Now, you said here, do you have a client who can assist with finding an appropriate NOC code? If the NOC doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. At the end of the day, acute hospital nurse care manager client, RNs under NOC 3012, yes. So once again, this one, Mark, relates specifically to finding the correct NOC. And it's not something, as much as I'd like to, that we could go through and look in detail. But because you are a good client and we did our very, very best to try to find the right NOC for you, what I'll show you, any type of managers within, I'll show you guys a little trick. So this is one little bonus tip that I wasn't intending on doing, but I want to share it with you. Okay, so you go to the NOC. So we'll take nurse, okay? Sometimes if you're stuck and you can't quite find the right position, I will always go to the one that's closest. So in this case, we're talking about acute hospital nurse case manager. So we talked about this at length, Mark. Case managers is a concept in Canada that just doesn't exist. But let's say you were a manager or a supervisor in nursing. So first thing I do is I'll find registered nurses. So this is the 3012 that you said. RNs are this, they are. So then from here, Then I go down to the very bottom and you can see all of these different kinds of nurses. So they're all encompassed within this general heading. Occupational health nurses, community health nurses, psychiatric nurses, nursing consultants, nursing researchers, clinical nurses. And it's for this reason, Mark, that when I look at these, I honestly believe that, when it comes to, even nursing researchers, right, engaged in research activities, to a large extent, in my mind, for your occupation, this is as close as I think we're going to get. Community health nurses, it shows what they do. Manage complex home care cases. Registered nurses are in the public health units, home visits, participate in community needs assessments. I honestly think that this is as close as you're going to get. All right. But for the rest of you, you go find the position that you think is closest. Then you go through here and you go down to the exclusions. So basically what this means is, okay, it's not this, but these other occupations are kind of close. So are you sure it's not one of those? So then we go to nurse practitioners. Okay. So here's this, or we go back to nursing coordinators and supervisors. Is it this one? And this you can see all of these different positions are close, but they're not 100% the same position. So that's one tip that I use frequently is I'll use these exclusions to help guide me to find the right place. Nursing service managers, you can see here, this is a high level one, and then registered practical nurses, which is also a licensed practical nurse, which is a step down from RNs. So quick little just helpful tips on trying to find your proper knock. So there you have it, Mark. Okay, and Habibur just tagged Tasnim Habib. Awesome, my friend. That's exactly what I want all of you guys to do. Tag your friends and let them know that this is happening. And then they will be able to also jump on and watch this live. Okay, and that's one of the reasons that I moved over to the Canadian Immigration Institute's Facebook page versus continuing to do these in the Express Entry Law Private Facebook group, because you couldn't share the videos. You couldn't notify your friends about it. And it was just really restrictive. So I'm actually really happy to do it here. Okay, Maria says, I've already a 411 score and I'm a pharmacist. Please, what are my chances for PNP? I know that pharmacist is not a required occupation among provinces. Thank you, dear. Maria, this fits in exactly with one of those questions that says, hey, this is specific to me and it doesn't really have anything to do with anyone else. When there's specific questions, then I direct people back to actually booking a consult with me. All right. So that's what I would recommend that you do. As far as trying to figure out what the correct PNP is, there are so many programs and it is not something that I can do, unfortunately, within this live Q&A. All right. Okay. Deval says, is US H1B petition denial after picked up in the lottery considered equivalent to a visa denial, even if one never visited the consulate? And what if one was not picked up in the H1B lottery? Is it still a visa denial and requires one to answer yes? I'm not even going to finish reading this, Deval, because the reality is anything that even remotely looks like a visa refusal, you're going to disclose it. You're going to say, yeah, it was a refusal. You're not going to take any chances. It does not harm your express entry application in any way. What will harm is by not stating it, and Canada has extensive information sharing agreements with the US, as can be attested to by one of my clients who submitted their own ETA application from, in this case, it was from Mexico, and failed to remember a prior visa refusal and got the ETA rejected, which was a huge inconvenience. Not an inconvenience. He was really lucky that he didn't get a 5-year bar. But if you in express entry don't do it, then there's a good chance you could face that bar. So yeah, I would disclose. Okay, Preji says, does a government job or working in a military organization as a civilian would take more time than normal processing time because of comprehensive security screening? It's entirely possible, yeah. And you know what? We had success. One of my past clients, shout out to him. I don't think he watches these anymore, but we were successful in getting his express entry via work experience working for as a non-commissioned officer within the military. And so it's possible. Did it take more time? Yeah, it did. And that's just the nature of it. But also, it's not just the military. It's the country that you live in. There's a whole bunch of different factors. Okay, our boss says, could you please explain inadmissibility under 36(2)(c) of IRPA? Can you please explain that? Okay, 36(2)(c) is committing an act. So anyone, I will touch on this briefly because lots of people book consults to talk about this. So if I go to IRPA, which is the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, and I'll type in 36, see if we can pull it up right straight. So inadmissibility, you can be found inadmissible from Canada. In this case, 36(1) is serious, but most of you, it'll be 2, criminality. For example, a DUI in the US is one of them. But 2, section 2 of 36(c) relates to committing an act outside Canada. Guys, if you've done something that never ever went to court, you were never charged, it never had any interaction with the court system in your country, immigration is not going to find that you've committed an act that basically would cause you to be criminally inadmissible to Canada. This is primarily reserved for people that are fleeing justice, that have a warrant out for their arrest, that have been charged criminally and are trying to evade prosecution in their home country. That's why this was created, okay? So I have many consults with people who are trying to determine if this committing an act would be something that would cause them to be criminally inadmissible to Canada. I also want to state another thing too. In the question, it asks if you've ever committed an offense. It asks you to disclose, convictions that you've had. You must be honest. And obviously your police certificates will state what's on your record, but you need to answer those questions as honestly as you possibly can. Otherwise it could lead to a misrep finding. Okay, good question. All right. Okay. Anbu says, my knock is 1241. I'm working under 1241 for 2 years. Let's see. But May 2012 to May 2013 was continuous foreign work experience, but I was pursuing a bachelor's degree simultaneously. So will the work experience be counted? Yes, if you were paid, if you met all those things. It doesn't matter if you're going to school while you're working, that's irrelevant. What's important is that you were working at least 30 hours of skilled work that was continuous, that was paid. Ultimately, you could technically be working part-time, 15 hours a week while you're going to school as well, continuously for 2 years to accumulate that time. So it's 100% acceptable outside of Canada. So as when you're claiming foreign work experience, if you're in Canada and you're on a study permit, then yeah, that Canadian work experience doesn't count. All right, DC says, Mark, with low CRS, is it not possible to go for express entry? I got good skill sets, good work experience, CRS. I'm trying for the 8777. What else do you get through express? What else can I do to get through express entry? Well, whenever someone ranks too low, there's only 2 options. One, consider going to school. And obviously there are a gazillion people that are doing that right now, which makes it freaking impossible for people who are genuine, who truly want to study, that are not just using it as a pathway to express entry. So now the government is starting to crack down. It's starting to make it more difficult to get study permits. But that's one. Come study in Canada, get an open work permit, get Canadian work experience. And then if express entry isn't possible, there are typically other provincial nominee programs that might be able to support your transition from a worker to permanent residence through one of those PNPs. The other is a job offer, a company in Canada who's willing to obtain a labor market impact assessment for you to support your work permit. You come over, work for them. In this case, you would get another 50 points towards express entry. Maybe that's enough. If you happen to get a job that's a 0-0 knock, a senior executive level position, well, then you can get up to 200 points, which basically locks you in as well. But that's typically what I recommend, DC. Okay. Gurjeet says, hi, Mark, please answer a vital question, smiley face. Oh, man. Okay, if you're putting a smiley face emoji in there, I guess I have to answer this question. Okay, I'm a secondary applicant. I applied as a student for UK in 2008, which was refused, but what was granted on a visa appeal in 2009. Great. After that, I got a couple of extensions as a student. The question is, do I need to mention my first refusal, which was granted in all the other application refusals to regularize my stay in UK. Gurjeet, yes, 100%. You disclose. There is no harm in not doing it. And if you didn't do it and you're in Canada now and you didn't disclose it on your prior work permit, you're bloody well going to disclose it on your express entry and let the chips fall, because you're never going to ever, despite what your stupid consultant or agent is telling you to do, misrepresent anything. And I get it so many times where consultants say, you don't have to worry about it, you don't have to worry about it. Simply put, they just don't have to adhere to the same ethical standards that I do as a lawyer, but I wouldn't morally advise anyone to lie on their applications anyways. But often consultants' risk tolerance is off the charts. They don't care. Like, they're all about, if they can get you through and get it approved, hey, it's all good. But the reality is, if immigration catches, I can't tell you how many times I've had people book consults with me trying to fix 5-year misrep bars because their consultant didn't state something properly or advised them not to disclose something that they should have. In your case, Gurjeet, you disclose, full stop. Mohammed says, hi Mark, would you please give an idea about timeline of processing the background checks? Please, proof of funds from AOR, date, thank you. Mohammed, there is no timeline. It varies on the individual. It varies on the officer, how quickly they can work through it. It varies on your country, whether their processes make it easy for Canada to verify. So I can't give that to you, my friend. Tatenda says, I've tried creating a profile twice, but both times I received a message saying profile ineligible. What could be the reason behind this? What do you know? Okay, I've done so many videos on this, but I'll start from this part right here. CRS tool, okay? Not CRS tool. It's called the come to, and I'll actually go to my screen here. It's called the Come to Canada tool. And this, I think, is where you're running into problems. So you come to Canada as a skilled immigrant. This process here assesses your eligibility through one of the federal skilled worker programs. So as you're going through it, I'll show you just really quickly a couple examples. Okay, I want to go to Alberta. Who cares what you put down here? It doesn't make a difference. Okay, language tests. Okay, obviously, what's a way that you can be found ineligible? Your language test is older than 2 years. It's expired. So if I put 2017 and I put July, we'll put even 25th, and I click next, whoa, what do you know? You can't, because your test must be less than 2 years old when you apply. Okay, great. So we just change this to 2019 and we leave it. Then we move to the next one. You have to meet the minimum eligibility, which is a CLB level 6. So if I put here on this 6 for reading, and writing 5.5, and click next. Oh, I forgot. It accepted that because the Canadian Experience class actually allows for a CLB 5. So we're going to put here, we're going to leave that as it is. I'm going to put, no, I don't have any other language tests. Okay. In the last 3 years, how many years of skilled work experience do you have in Canada? I'm going to put none. None of the above. And then I click next. Okay. In the last 10 years, I guess the wizard isn't smart enough to catch that. In the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience do you have? And it must be continuous, blah, blah, blah. So I'll say 2 to 3. Okay. If you're not sure of the knock, find it, whatever. So, okay, this is asking, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to skip that. This here is related to skilled trades, and that's not the case for me. So I'm going to put none, and that's why. Then I click next. Then it says, how much money do you have? This is one of the places where you commonly can be found ineligible. Okay, you have to have at least that 1 year of skilled work experience, but you can be found ineligible here by not putting enough money in. So if we go here and we go proof of funds, and I look it up and I see, okay, well, what is it currently? And I always go back. I never, ever alter this, okay? So I go back here and you can see 12,669. Okay, check this out. How much money do you have? 12,669? No, I have less than that. How many family members? 1. Next. Do you have a valid job offer in Canada? No. And the reason it's asking for a job offer is because if you do, settlement funds don't apply. So I'm going to say no. Are you currently working legally in Canada? No, I'm not. So then you can see here, Based on your answers, you do not appear to be eligible for express entry. So that is one of the main things. You don't qualify through one of the federal skilled worker program, the Canadian experience class, or the federal skilled trade program. You don't have the proof of funds sufficient to settle in Canada. So there's a wide variety of these rationales, I guess, if you will. All right. And so I think I shared all of that with you. I think I showed it. Maybe I didn't. Anyways, you could listen and get the gist of what I was talking about. Okay. All right. At the end of the day, Tatenda, if you are really struggling and can't figure it out, then book a paid consult. Go to that link that I showed you on that I posted. Looks like that sometimes the HR doesn't tell me what they're doing with the firm. I spent a lot of time creating this link, and scheduling a consultation isn't here anymore. So somehow it's disappeared. So go back to my name. So I'll click on here, and then the book a consult with Mark is here at the bottom. So I guess I'm posting that one now here so that you guys can see. Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess we'll need to get that figured out, won't we, guys? All right. Okay. So next question. Okay. So Mukta says, hi, I wanted to know, I'm HR profession. Are there any chances for PNP? Okay. That's a specific assessment that would require this. Book a paid consultation here. And then we can go through and do all those assessments, but it's not something that I can do in a live Q&A because questions need to be related specifically to something that's general that will benefit everyone. Okay, hope you can understand, Mukta. Anby says, what is your webpage to book a consultation directly with you? Okay, I just posted it, so hopefully you can check the screen. Botchty says, hi Mark, can you tell me how long time takes to receive an appointment consultation with you usually? Like a couple days. If it's something that's super urgent, I can usually get you in the next day that you book the consult, because I always send out my questionnaire for you to complete. I send out my credit card consultation, my credit card confirmation. So you actually put your credit card information in, and then that payment, once we get the credit card confirmation sheet back and your intake form. And what is the intake form? Well, it's a form that allows me to allows you to answer all the questions that I need you to answer so that I can make the consult actually worthwhile for you. And so you upload that into our electronic system, our online system. And then from there, we send you out the consult booking link. And then you basically go into my own calendar and book your spot in the next available time. In urgent situations, I always try to accommodate people. So that's how it works. Okay. Paramveer says, any chance for dentists to get a PNP nomination? That's one I can't answer, my friend. When it comes to a dentist, it's rarely on the occupations in demand list. So almost in every case, it comes down to qualifying through express entry or ultimately getting a job offer. Okay. Tanjima, first question I want to ask you, and you can maybe post this below, but you're indicating lawyer here. If you're asking me a question and you have hired an immigration lawyer to help you, that freaking immigration lawyer better be able to answer every one of your questions. And if they can't, then you tell me who they are and I will address it with them. If instead it's actually a consultant that you have that's claiming to be a lawyer, then fire them, because that is totally unethical, unprofessional, and everything along those lines. Let me now get to your question. I have got my AOR on the 15th of May. Awesome. My IELTS expired on the 24th of June. My lawyer is now asking for my valid IELTS because according to her, I need to be eligible. Do I need to give IELTS to be eligible? Thanks in advance. If you have your acknowledgement of receipt, that means that your express entry application has been submitted. You are close. So May 15th expires June 24th. Once you've submitted your electronic application for permanent residence, it is generally locked in. The time to get your to get an updated IELTS is not after you submit your EAPR, because it's not designed really for anyone to update their file, even though we do it all the time with case-specific inquiry. When it comes to express entry, and I will share my screen, this is A11.2 EE. That's what takes me to where I need to be. This is how an officer assesses any changes or anything that has been modified in your express entry application that could cause it to be rejected. In other words, yes, language assessments. When you go through this process, and I'm not going to take a lot of time to do it, the most important thing that you need to understand, officers should refuse an application under Section A11.2, that's the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, if it is determined that at the time of the ETA, at the time of the ITA or EAPR, the applicant did not or does not meet the minimum entry criteria, which includes the requirements of the program to which they were invited to apply. Okay, so remember, this is at the time of the EAPR, or the applicant's recalculated CRS score falls below that of the lowest ranked candidate invited to apply in that round of invitation. So what I'm trying to get at here is that when your EAPR is submitted and they are doing the completeness check, if your language assessment was valid at this time, then it's valid. Now, once again, with my clients, I don't leave any gray area. I always make sure that they will get a new one in advance. But in your situation, if you have already submitted it, your language scores were valid for more than a month, so you've got your acknowledgement of receipt, it makes absolutely no sense to me why your lawyer would be telling you to go get a new language assessment test. Unless, of course, you aren't actually at your acknowledgement of receipt and they're just blowing smoke, which I'm assuming, anyways, you can say Tajima if this is a lawyer or a consultant. I'm actually going to scroll down to the bottom and see if you actually answered that. No, you didn't. Okay. All right, so that's the short answer. Okay, Amjad says here, he says, let's see. He says, what is realty about AIPP, sir? What is the reality? The Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program? Once again, this diverts outside of express entry, but the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is a special program for the maritime provinces that is employer-driven, where if you have an employer that's willing to support you, they can then help to facilitate in an expedited fashion your permanent residence, similar to express entry, but it's a separate federal program outside of the express entry regime that requires an employer in one of the Atlantic provinces to support your application. Okay. Okay, Rashman says, I got a Canadian student visa 5 years ago, but due to my late visa came in, I was removed from the class. But now I'm applying for express entry with my husband. Will this history affect my express entry application? Well, if you got it approved, I don't see that there shouldn't be a big deal at all. It shouldn't impact in any way. It's only refusals. And even then, they don't really impact, but you do have to disclose them. You should have a separate IRCC client ID number that's associated with that visa. You will want to make sure that, let's see here, with my husband, okay, if you're the principal applicant, you'll definitely want to use that client identification number when you're submitting your express entry application so that they can merge them together. But unless your visa was actually refused, well, you're going to disclose everything. All right. Okay. Santa says, does it look bad or cut points if I update my EE profile after submission, but still waiting for ITA? No, that's the whole purpose of it. That's why you can go back and update it. There's nothing bad about that. In fact, that's what people do. Okay. Z says here, hi dear, I forgot to inform my agent about my visa refusal from Australia in 2012 and my wife's from Spain. I launched my application July 28th. 3 months after my AOR, I was speaking to my agent and informed him about the refusal. He raised a web form to inform ICCRC. Will it affect my application? Z, 100% it could. It's entirely possible that an officer says, no, I'm not accepting this now. You swore that everything was correct. You attested to the fact that everything was correct. And so, but how do you deal with it? Exactly as you dealt with it, by disclosing it immediately when you realize you forgot, and then hoping that that officer is not going to crucify you for it and reject your application and issue you a 5-year bar. Okay, let's see here, scrolling down. Aditya says, I have one question. Can I show my experience if I don't show and study permit? I don't quite understand that one. Let's see. Anbu says, I'll book a consult. Great, Anbu. I look forward to connecting with you. Aditya says, I had legal experience, but my repetitive day, no, because it was not related to my study. I have my pay stuff and everything to prove. Aditya, I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to here, but you can claim work experience while you're studying. That's totally fine as long as it was paid and it meets all the other requirements of the Federal Skilled Worker Program. Continuous, full-time, skilled, paid in, and when it comes to assessing your eligibility for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, that assessment requires it to be all in the same knock. Usman says, if my colleague who works in the same company nowadays I work does not cooperate in reference letter, then should I contact my other colleague who has moved to some other company? Okay, Usman, for one, it needs to be a supervisor or someone who actually has control over, like that you report to, that can attest, that has an ability to sign on behalf of the company. At the end of the day, if they're refusing, then wow, like it's tough. You've got to find, if someone has moved from the company, then that's just going to cause even more issues. They're going to ask, well, what's the issue? If I'm just wondering now, it doesn't say here if you're still working for that company, but at the end of the day, claiming work history is a pain. It's really, really difficult. So unless you're in a position where you're able to really fully support with a reference letter, then boy, yes, you can. If you can fully explain why and the company's truly refusing to cooperate with you, then you have to be really, really creative in what you do. And I'll be honest, Usman, I can't tell you in your specific situation exactly what to do without knowing a whole lot more. And that would come to a paid consult. So, all right, I wish you all the best, but it's not a simple question of yes, or a simple answer of yes, you can just use your other colleague who's no longer with the company. It all comes down to why? Why won't they give it to you? Who is this? Because you say colleague. Is there no one up higher in the company that you can go? So those are all the things that we assess in that. Okay. Gurjeet says, thanks a lot, Mark. I do not have any consultants at the moment. And honestly, I do not trust consultants. Okay, but I'm going to pass you my case when the time comes to it. I'm still in the UK, so it will be a couple of months more for me. Thanks, Gurjeet. I really appreciate that. I look forward to working with you. Niraj, can I use multiple knock codes apart from primary knock? Niraj, once you've met that 1 year continuous full-time skilled paid work experience, then after that, when it comes to the comprehensive ranking system, you can claim other knocks. But for the purposes of the Federal Skilled Worker Program, in order to meet that 67-point threshold to be eligible under the federal program, you need to have enough work experience in the same knock to do that. If you do, then you can have multiple knocks to claim the remainder of really the 3 years of comprehensive ranking system scores for work experience. Okay. Anbu says, Mark, thank you for the 1241 knock answer. Is it smart to complete IELTS English and TEF French to boost points? 100%. Absolutely. You're going to do everything in your power. If you have the ability to write both tests, you're going to do it because it's guaranteed. I'll just put in here, this is for you, Anbu. And really, if any of you want to reach out to Stephanie directly, you can do that. You can just send it to stephanie@stringham.ca. All right. And because I get so many emails, it's just not effective to send an email directly to me because then it just gets lost. So Stephanie keeps track of all that for me so I can do this for you guys. Okay, Dicha says, okay, I got it. Salman says, hi, Mark. My air wire is the 20th of March, 23 days left for 6 months. Should I raise a web form or stay patient? Stay patient. Rolf says, last question today, please. What is the difference, Mark, between Come to Canada tool and comprehensive ranking system? Both test eligibility to express entry. Yeah, the Come to Canada tool is just an easy way of doing it that doesn't require you to dive into all of the other, well, really going through, entering your MyCIC, creating an account for yourself, all of that. Yes, it's the exact same assessment. There's not a lot of difference, but I just use the Come to Canada tool because it's easy and I don't have to spend all that time, at least creating a MyCIC account, at least if I was the personal individual. Okay. Mukta says, hi, thanks for answering. Definitely I'll try and book the consultation. Just one question. My spouse and I are planning to apply for express entry. Just wanted to have an understanding. Can we switch primary applicant? Yeah, you're always going to look to see which applicant will get the highest score. Simple as that. Tanjima says, I have confirmed with CIC through web form. They said my application is with them. Great. Okay. Anbu says, do you recommend federal skilled worker plus study option, dual intent, or better to go to Canada with confirmation of permanent residence under federal skilled worker? If you can get in 6 months permanent residence in Canada, every single time you're going to do permanent residence. Every single time. Why? Because if you go on a study permit, you're going to be spending 3 times the tuition that a Canadian would spend on your education, which is a complete waste of money. If you're eligible for express entry to go through and get your permanent residence, then once you become a permanent resident, if you can still go to school, but you pay local rates, which are way cheaper. Okay. Sana says, thanks. Love your online sessions. Awesome. Thank you, Sana. Stanagol says, how about for Afghanistan people? My friend, you're the same as everybody else in the world. You have to meet the same requirements. So there's nothing special, nothing different. Okay, Tanjima asks about a prior visa refusal. Yes, you need to disclose every time. Okay, Nilesh says, does the new rural and northern immigration pilot a PNP? No, it's a federal program just like the Atlantic immigration pilot program. Okay, let's see here. I think we're just about done here. So Franco says, thanks, Mark, for your time answering questions every week. You're very welcome, Franco. And Niraj says, thanks. Awesome. Okay, we're going to end right there, guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to stick with me. This one was a little bit longer, but we had a really, really awesome group of people that were tuning in and that were watching. And I wanted to share with all of you guys, like I always do, I have now moved over to a new platform, which I am unbelievably excited about. And this is a new home of the Canadian Immigration Institute. In here, you will be able to find right here, individual guides at the top. You will be able to find the link where you can access my do-it-yourself guide to immigration. And many, many people have subscribed to this and have been able to benefit from it. And much of the information that I share in these EE Live Q&As can be found here. And for those of you who've stuck it out, this guide covers every aspect of it. And we're in the process of actually providing a little bit of a prep so you can see how it's structured. But this right here, guys, for those of you who have stuck around to the end, if you click on Purchase Guide right here, and this is for the lifetime access, and type in code EEDIY50 and click Apply, you will get 50% off, and lifetime access will only be $248.50 US. So that is for all of you guys that are watching this. And I don't advertise it all over the place, only people that actually take the time to interact directly with me and to watch what we're doing here. I just want to jump back again here and show you that there also is monthly access. So if you just need access for a month, you can go here and you can subscribe for monthly access. Remember, this automatically renews, you can see, unless canceled. So you can go in for a month and then cancel it. And then if you need to use it a couple months down the road, you can do that as well. But in all honesty, the deal for the lifetime access is 100 times better. Those of you who are trying to find a job in Canada, I want you to pay close attention now, okay? This is important. So within here, these programs that I have, I've recently created my very first business guide. And this one is all about LMIAs for high wage positions. And these are the actual process that a company has to go through if they want to be able to hire you and support your permanent residence. So in this case, it's designed for high wage temporary foreign workers, but the principles are all the same regardless. So for only $300 right now, and this is limited because once this starts to get traction, I'm actually going to bump it up probably closer to about $900. So if you have companies that want to hire you and they're not sure how it works, they can go here, they can purchase this LMIA guide, and it will walk them step by step through the entire process of submitting an LMIA application. All right. So I wanted to let everybody know about that. But as always, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. I guess I got to post the link. I forgot. If you guys type in CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, you will also get here. I will put this here. So there's the main site. And then if you go to individual guides, learn more right here, that will take you to Express Entry, and I'll also post that. Sorry, I'm not a very good marketer. at the end of the day, I talk, and this will take you right here. Yeah, it's hard to multitask. Anyways, I want to express appreciation to all of you guys for tuning in. Remember, if you'd like to have your question answered, and you can't attend the live session on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page, and I guess I'll just take a second just to show you guys that, if you're watching this on YouTube. So right here. So the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page right here, this is where these are being broadcast. And if you scroll down, and that should pop up here, right in the feed is where you'll see it. If you click that you like this page, then when I go live, you'll get a notification in your feed. And you can see here, we're working right here, right now. This is where the live feed is, all right? So, and then those of you who are also looking for more support and guidance, remember there's always the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, which is just about to 125,000 right now. And you can see there are links here to book a consult with me, to the Canadian Immigration Institute as well. And if you have a question, you can put it right here. And look at Mauricia. She is so awesome. Mauricia, you are so cool. She just posted it in the group. So some of you may be watching it right there. And then when anyone else right here, Stanagal also appears to have posted it too as a watch party. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate all of the support. You guys know that I'm pretty much a one-hit wonder here. So I do this and try to do all the tech stuff. And it's actually been kind of interesting because it's forced me to be much more, expand my mind to having multiple balls being juggled. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I'm just grateful right now that it is. As always, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. This wouldn't be possible without you guys. Your questions form the content that allows me to share with everybody else. So thank you. If you'd like to book a consult, remember you can always do that just by going to my law firm website, which is stringham.ca. And like we posted before, you can go right to this page. You can just go to my profile, Mark Holthe, and at the bottom right here is the book a consult. So you're 100% free to do that. All right, and that is pretty much all I got for today. I want to wish all of you guys the very, very best as you navigate this crazy world that we all call Express Entry. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher signing off. Take care.